You're listening to The Pump Fake. With your host, Jarrett Bailey.
All right, everybody, welcome into the latest edition of The Pump Fake. Jarrett Bailey with you as always, and joined today by my good friend, Mike Tanier from Two Deep Zone. Hi, fella. How are you?
Doing well. Like we were just kvetching off camera. The draft is over. It really changes your outlook on life.
It does. I'm very thankful to no longer be talking about. I'm very happy I don't have to hear the word mock draft until like December. Maybe a little bit earlier. I know a lot of people get really crazy about them, like around like November almost. But for the most part, I think we're done hearing mock draft for a little bit.
Just for a few months, you're right. I think of mock drafts as before, February or March, as very location specific, where if your team's in last place and there's nothing else to write about, you can pull up the simulator. Of course, it's ridiculous because, the bowl games haven't been played yet. Like the SEC championship hasn't happened yet, and you're making a mock draft. But like, if you're a national person and you're doing a mock draft in November, what the fuck?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I mean, because people, for some reason, like people do read them a lot. Yes. Even no matter like what we think of them, for a lot of people obviously read them for there to be this many. But my goodness, man, especially like once you reach like April, it's just exhausting. You're burnt out from it, and you're just ready for it to be done.
Yeah, and both you and I, we watch the film, and we go into tape and do stat analysis, and you'll interview guys, I've interviewed guys, and we travel. And at that point, which there's this dichotomy in that you and I might be looking at like some third or fourth or fifth round linebacker and trying to get some sort of anything, some sort of signal out of this besides, he's a big, fast kid who hits hard, from the SEC. And meanwhile, the rest of the world is like, well, where's Shedeur Sanders going to go? Look what those weeks and months of speculation, look where it got us.
Yeah.
Look where it got us.
It gets us like a few other people in our industry who will like look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's a good pull there. So like I feel like at the end of the day, we do what we do like with that stuff for like 3 of like our colleagues to be like, oh, that was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a degree to which sometimes we're writing and working for others, for each other too.
Yes.
Like I'll write something and like, well, who's going to see this? It's like, well, Jarrett's going to see it. Farr's going to see it. JP, Aaron, that's who's going to see this. Because even like my core readers are like, here's what I think about the 5th round offensive guard. They're not reading.
Right.
They're not reading. So it's like the fashion models. They dress for each other.
That's a good way of describing it. Like, it's very few like diehards that are going to come looking for content, talking about some Conference USA receiver that's going to go in round 6.
You can, because when you're doing Steelers, you're doing Bills, you can hook it.
Right.
Steelers need a running back. They need an offensive lineman. The Bills need not much, but you can always put something in there. And here's the guy, and here's how he fits. When you're doing the national scene, it's like, I mean, honestly, I'm not doing it next year. I'm not doing a 96 guy thing like this next year. It makes more sense to just hit on famous guy, deeper dive, famous guy, deeper dive.
Yeah,
what are
absolutely.
we doing?
Agreed. But today what we're going to do, every year in the league, there's at least one team, it seems, that goes from being the worst team in their division to being the division winner. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I probably should have looked it up, but it's been somewhat like very consistent over the last like 25 years. Where a team will go from worst to first. So what we're going to do today, we're going to look at all 8 divisions and power rank the likelihood of last year's last place finisher going from worst to first. So 8 divisions, who's the most likely to go from worst to first. And we will start with number 8. I put the Browns at 8. I don't think, like, you look at what their quarterback situation is right now. I know a lot of people are banging on the Steelers quarterback situation, but the Browns traded for Kenny Pickett, who isn't good. Notoriously, I love Kenny Pickett. And then they bring in Joe Flacco, which I mean, whatever, but Joe Flacco's also, 40 years old. And I think a lot of Browns fans are going to talk themselves into it because of like the magic carpet ride they went on in 2023. And then the quarterback draft dipshittery that took place where they draft Dylan Gabriel and then Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
They're going to banish Deshaun Watson to Christian hell, whatever. That's fine. But the 4 other guys that they have right now don't inspire a lot of confidence. Outside of Jerry Jeudy, there's not a lot there receiver-wise. And defensively, that's a unit that took a few steps back last year. So, and it's a division that features Baltimore, who's going to be really good, Cincinnati, who's going to be at minimum in the wild card hunt with their offense alone, and Pittsburgh, who seemingly wins at least 9 games a year somehow. So I think just because of the division that they play in, that itself moves them down considerably.
Yeah, about an hour ago, I did Ohio radio,
and
I come on, and I'm not slagging on the Ohio radio station. It's midday. You need to talk about something. You're going to be talking about the NFL probably. And I come on, and the host is like, well, the Browns just signed Deontay Johnson. What do you think he adds to this offense that they've built? And I was flabbergasted that we've reached the point in Cleveland where like, well, Deontay Johnson played for 6 teams last year. Was just getting kicked off the back of rosters. Like no one would even talk about why he was gone. And now it's like, well, what's he going to do for Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett behind Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman? I'm like, I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I said, can we talk about the defense? Because like they did some good things on defense. And you're right. Like then we switched to the Steelers, and it's like, my God, I never thought I'd want to talk about the Bengals.
Oh, I mean, at least the Bengals are fun.
They're going to score. They're going to score points. They're going to score points, which means they'll win games. Yeah, the Browns are, I would put them absolutely 8th in terms of worst to first. If you told me they could stumble into 3rd place or something, I believe it. But I've got the Aaron Schatz preliminary projections here, and I can't go too deeply in them, but the Browns are ranked 32nd.
That sounds about right.
Yes. So that's that.
There you go. The New Orleans Saints are my number 7 team. Tyler Shuck. Sure. 2nd round quarterback, Tyler Shuck, man. Like, I just don't get it. And I think it was Colin Cowherd who said, if we talk about quarterbacks more after they're done playing than we did when they were playing, that's probably a red flag a little bit. And I thought that was a really good point to make. Like nobody talked about this dude until late December. And he's 90 years old. He's been in college forever. And now they're going to probably replace old injury-prone Derek Carr with slightly younger injury-prone guy who comped as Derek Carr coming out of college. I don't get it. The offense, like they are a team that lacked excitement across the board going into the draft, and somehow I came away even less excited about anything that they could do. Offensively, there's not a lot there. Like Alvin Kamara is getting a little bit older. Chris Olave is good, but dealing with injuries like that, that's always a red flag with him. And all of their defensive stars are prehistoric. Like this is a team that is boring, leaning far too much on old guys on defense. I don't see, and even in the NFC South, man, I know the NFC South is very up in the air, but at least with Tampa and Atlanta, you can talk me into, okay, well, the Bucs have been to the playoffs a few years in a row. Baker had 40 touchdowns last year. Michael Penix showed a little bit of sparks and whatnot with the Falcons. Bryce Young played really well the last month of the year in Carolina. You can't talk me into anything with the Saints.
Is Tyler Shuck older than you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's 27.
Yeah, he's 20, I think he's 26, but
is he? Here, let's look it up. I don't want to be talking out of both sides of my mouth.
Trevor Lawrence, I know that.
Yeah. Tyler Shuck, he was college teammates with Jawan Johnson, who has been with the Saints for like 5 years at this point.
Yes, he backed up Justin Herbert, and he competed for a job and kind of lost it to Anthony Brown. He didn't lose it, but he portaled out of Dodge. So the one thing that has shocked me during this is, even though I'm working on the NFC South for Aaron Schatz's FTN Almanac, I thought the Panthers were in last place, but apparently I got mixed up at how
they were tied for last place. But by the way that they were listed, the Saints were listed in last, I think, by division record.
Right. I think it is because of division record, because the Panthers had a couple of wins in division.
Right.
Yeah, no, the Saints, I've been working really on their cap situation, which is a lifelong job, trying to make sense of it. And if Derek Carr doesn't play, which is pretty likely, and if Taysom Hill doesn't play, December ACL tear, if he doesn't play, over I think close to $120 million is eaten up in either dead money or guys who are actively injured for next year. So including dead money for people like Marshawn Lattimore. Michael Thomas still eats up dead money for them. Jameis Winston still eats up dead money for them.
What kind of Bobby Bonilla contract is Michael Thomas on, by the way? Goodness.
It's so weird. Like I wrote an article about it, and it took me like 45 minutes to nail down what happened to Michael Thomas. First of all, 2019 was his good year.
Yeah.
29, like 6 years have passed, and I see him still on the budget. I'm like, how? That shouldn't be legal. That's like me paying off my college loans at 54. Like that shouldn't happen. But you're right. The one thing that the NFC, the Saints have going for them is the NFC West.
Yeah.
But obviously the Falcons have a level of baseline competence, and the Buccaneers are pretty good.
I mean, I have questions about the Bucs defense, but I mean, offensively, similar to Cincinnati, they're going to score. Mm-hmm. I do have an age on Tyler Shuck, by the way. No, I am older than him. He is going to be 26 in September. So September. Yes, so a little bit older than him. But regardless, yes, you have a rookie quarterback who will be 26 years old before the first month of the regular season is done. So assuming that Carr is going to be done, it's going to be a quarterback room of Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener. Godspeed, New Orleans.
And it's three guys who were in college forever.
It's like three guys that if you put them next to each other, you could tell me they were any boy band ever, and I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right down to the fact that they're just too old to be running around out there. It's like some buddy comedy about the guys who never grew up and they're in college too long. We saw Shuck in Mobile, mm-hmm. and like he didn't embarrass himself by any means, but we were not sitting there saying, "Well, this poised leader of men." It's like, oh, he didn't bounce the ball at anyone's feet like Milrow, so that's that's the story,
All right, to number 6. I'm going to put Las Vegas there. Again, this comes back to it mostly big. They're in the AFC West where the Chiefs aren't going to lose the division.
Right.
So it's not, if they were in the NFC South, they would be probably number 1 on this list. I like everything that they've done this offseason. They bring in a real grown-up to be their head coach, and they're like a proven, established head coach in Pete Carroll, getting a real quarterback in Geno Smith. Like they're doing all the right things. Still have a few questions at receiver. I know they drafted Besh, the kid from TCU, so that helps complement Jacoby Myers. I think Trey Tucker. Brock Bowers is like, the offense will be fun. They bring in Genty as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what the offense does. Obviously, Maxx Crosby just got paid more money than the gross domestic product in the state of Nevada. So they have a lot of pieces, and they bring in real adults to help run the ship. And I think that they're going to be better in on the wild card hunt. But anytime you're in a division with Kansas City, I don't think that they're going to win. Plus, you got to deal with Denver and Los Angeles, both of whom were playoff teams a year ago. So those are all things taken into consideration here. But the Raiders will be better.
Raiders will be better. And if we were talking which team will improve, which last place team will improve the most or whatever, could compete for a wild card, if we said it that way, I'd say, yeah, Raiders here. I'd have to put this in terms of worst to first as the concept.
Yeah.
You're not if Kansas City somehow implodes, then you still have the Chargers and Broncos to deal with. Whereas obviously the NFC South, anything can happen.
Sure.
And usually does. And that's why I would say, well, I would put the Raiders below the Saints on this.
That's fair.
Right. But beyond that, everything you said is right. It's like, the skill position talent is there. Genty makes them a tough out at the very least. I can do the whole analytics thing about a running back and taking a running back 5th overall. You're a tougher out now. Okay. Your floor has gone up to a degree. And that's going to help them with that last place schedule. I think they might scare a win or two in the division. Somebody trips over them, etc. So better team. We'll see where that takes them. Yeah,
and like looking elsewhere in the division, like is Denver going to be as good as they were last year? Like defensively, they look stacked. Drafting was it Jade Barron in the first round to complement Patrick Surtain. Like that was very good. So I think that Denver is going to be at least like formidable. I don't know if we see 4 new playoff teams at least every year, so there's going to be 4 that fall out, and Denver could be one of those. The Chargers,
Yeah.
Man, like I've banged on the Chargers a lot this offseason.
You've been down on them.
Yes. I
Finally,
have
the worm has turned.
I mean, like I'm still a Herbert guy. I'm just not I don't get. You sign Najee Harris in the offseason, right? And then when you have like a guy like Matthew Golden right there to help in the passing game, you decide to draft another running back in the first round. Like the Harbaugh, Greg Roman thing, I'm just not bought into it. I think that they're trying to win like it's still like the early 2000s. And like, yeah, you need a semblance of a run game to help Justin Herbert. No doubt about it. But they've swung the pendulum too far on the other side where it's Ladd McConkey and the ghost of Mike Williams as your top two receivers, and that's not going to help them. So I think Vegas, if you told me you think Vegas is going to be better than the Chargers, I wouldn't argue with you.
Well, I'm going to show you. Yeah, in fact, I've got the DVOA projections right up. And Perfect. Right now, these are preliminary still. Vegas is ranked ahead of the Chargers in the rankings. And then Vegas is in position of teams of wild card. Broncos are ahead of that. And I mean, the way the Broncos approached this, I think I looked at them and said, yeah, the defense is pretty set. Could use a piece or two. Offense needs playmakers. And Sean Payton looked at this like, I'm going to grab every defensive player I can find and just add some weirdos on offense. Just put more weirdos on this offense. Evan Ingram, that's a weirdo. Guys who run like 4.6 40s. Let's put them in at wide receiver, And it's like, okay, you self-scouted differently than the rest of us see it, but like you've got a playoff team there. You've got pieces in place, and right now they're a second place projection.
Yeah. My number 5, I don't feel good about putting them here. I should probably put them lower, actually. You know what? Maybe I should flip. No, because we talked about the AFC West. It makes sense to have it. I'll put the Giants here, I guess.
God.
It shouldn't be this high. No, they absolutely shouldn't be. A quarterback room of Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Jackson Dart. I think the most important over-under here is like number of weeks before Brian Daboll is like physically strangling his quarterbacks on the sideline. Like Russell Wilson's going to throw a pass like it was intended for the other team's safety, and Daboll's going to be chasing him while Jameis Winston's like reciting a sonnet in his ear or some dumb shit that he does.
She walks in beauty like the night. What are you talking about? You threw 3 interceptions, you freak.
Oh,
and Mara's going to be on the phone. You have to start other Eli. You have to start Jackson. Jackson, Dart, Manning, and Daboll's just going to blow his stack.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be shocked. Like, first of all, I'm shocked that Daboll and Shen were brought back this year. I thought that they were, if you're Mara, you could have said, all right, well, there's an easy way to get out of this right now. They very much underperformed, and it's just time to move on. But they didn't. Both of those guys are back. And I'll say this, they'll get to the quarterback. Like Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, that's a fun defensive front. Mm-hmm. I don't know what else they'll do well, but they'll do that.
Mara likes having a guy to fire.
Yeah.
He loves having general managers and coaches twisting in the wind somewhere. He likes having that layer of unaccountability between him and any results. And the whole thing about the Giants, they'll rush the quarterback. That's what we've been saying for years. They had Burns and Thibodeau before this. They've always had like a couple of defensive players, even going back to the late Eli era when they still had Matthias Kiwanuka and Osi Umenyiora and those guys. They've got one offensive playmaker. Now it's Neighbors. Then it was Saquon. Then it was Odell. Quarterback situation is FUBAR. Coaching situation is FUBAR. And they keep doing this over and over and over again. So again, for them to get in the first place, both the Eagles and Commanders have to collapse utterly.
And not to mention the fact that you still got Dallas to worry about, even though Brian Schottenheimer's there. God help us all.
Right. They saw Parsons and Lamb and Prescott, so it's like, well, that's dangerous. So if all hell's breaking loose and the other teams fall apart, they could be the scavengers. So this is another one where I'd stick the Saints above these guys because again, like, well, could the Buccaneers collapse? Yeah, I think if Evans and Godwin are both hurt, that's it for them. What about the Falcons? They're the fucking Falcons. They're going to collapse. They're like the Saints go to the top. You can't tell me the Eagles collapse and then the Commanders aren't like, this isn't our damn opportunity, and they don't surge. So that,
No, you're absolutely right. Man, yeah, I really cucked this up.
You're trying to do last place teams, and it's like they all suck.
They all stink. They're all bad. Right. There's a reason they were in last place.
Right, and it's hard to, because again, like wild card. Like who could make a wild card? Again, I think the Raiders are a great choice.
Yeah.
You know, but like trying to project the first, it's like you're projecting a car crash and
You
say
sure are.
swerve around it. That's kind
Yeah.
of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Now this next team, I will say I'm on record saying I think they will be a playoff team in 2025. I put the Patriots 4.
Okay.
Again, similar to the Raiders, the only reason I don't have them higher is because the Bills, unless unless Josh Allen suffers like a really bad injury, knock on wood, don't want that to happen.
Right.
But the Bills are going to win this division.
Yes. Bills are going to win the division. Patriots have improved. I was kind of a Patriots skeptic, but like I like trolling Patriots fans.
Sure.
Yeah, you know, and the projection has them still in. No, they don't. It does not have them in last place in the NFC East. It has the Jets in last place, which seems right. So this looks like a team that has built itself to third, or you know how the Dolphins go,
Right.
like to second. But
what's the over/under on games started for Quinn Ewers this year in Miami?
they're going to turn. They're already turning on Tua.
Oh, 100%.
Organizationally, they are so done with Tua for whatever reason. I don't know if that's appropriate or healthy for them. But you've got McDaniel like huffing on Zach Wilson. And the worst guy you can bring into all this is Mr. fucking Winter Sauce, who can't even like tie his own shoelaces. Like of all the quarterbacks, forget Shedeur, forget Dylan Gabriel, who's like 4'6". Quinn Ewers is barely an athlete. Like he is somebody from like the 1950s who was like a coach's son or something like that who got out there.
Yeah. I feel like watching Quinn Ewers should be in black and white with like an old timey radio guy. Like, oh, here comes Quinn Ewers after the ball game. Like, oh Jesus. That's
perfect. Like watching old Joe Cap.
Yeah.
Like tipping over his own feet and the ball flies up in the air. Yeah. Isaiah Bond caught it. Well, who had that? Who saw that coming? You know.
Here comes Quinn Ewers starting to Johnny McGillicuddy for the Miami Dolphins.
Right, Crazy Legs McGillicuddy. He always has some crazy ass nickname.
Yeah. You
know, shots at Tequila Jones with the catch there. New England's placed in the right place here because again, the thing is, okay, one catastrophe, the Bills having a catastrophe. Then you see it as opposed to like the multiple catastrophes that might have to happen for some of these other teams.
Yeah, and you look at, I mean, we just talked about it with the Dolphins, but even like the Jets, I'm not buying into the Jets until it's proven that I should. And New England, like, look, man, Drake Maye had some moments last year where you're like, okay, like there's certainly something there. And then you get him, you know, some competent talent with, you know, even at his advanced age, Stephon Diggs is like at least a proven veteran to put in that room. I think drafting Kyle Williams, who we saw in Mobile, is a really good addition as well. So they went about the free agency part of the offseason as, okay, we've got a ton of money to spend. We're going to spend it. You bring in Milton Williams, bring in Carlton Davis. And then draft wise, it was about the offense drafting Will Campbell and Travion Henderson and Williams. So like they have had a really good approach to the offseason. They bring in Vrabel, who's a proven winner. I think that's a team that at the very least will be in it until the very end in terms of getting a playoff spot.
It's similar to what the Commanders did last year in the offseason, is that we're just bringing tons of guys. We're bringing in tons of guys. Not all these moves will work. But when you start duplicating, like we drafted offensive linemen and we signed veteran offensive linemen, something should stick, and that can get you higher in the standings, maybe not the NFC championship game, or whatever. In terms of the Jets, they don't want you to buy into them. The Jets want everyone to go away for a year. They just want it. They just want some peace and quiet, and you can see that how they put it together. That's fine. See if Fields has got anything left, and try to look at Wilson and Gardner and those guys and say who wants the extension, who's going to be with this program, who believes in us moving forward. Because that's always been the Jets' problem is they never have a hard time getting a rookie who's like a rookie of the year candidate. It's 2 years later have they completely dried up of the entire operation. You know,
right?
Jamal Adams.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably see something similar to like with Fields in Chicago, where they're down by 20 and he has like 3 great runs throughout the season where you're like, oh, there's something there.
Right. The never-ending Fields, obviously he'll give you those highlights. Now.
Right.
In what percentage?
Yeah. I mean, look, as an unapologetic Justin Fields guy, I hope he does great, but we'll see. I put maybe they should be a little bit higher. I'm going to adjust this on the fly because because of the earlier admissions that we had. So I'm actually going to put the Bears here. I'm on board with the Bears. I picked them to be a playoff team last year. That was dumb for believing in Mad Eberflus. But I love the hire of Ben Johnson. Caleb, like, got overshadowed by Jaden Daniels having a great year, but Caleb had a fine rookie year. And with the weapons that they have around him still, they add Colson Loveland. Like, Ben Johnson very clearly is just building his version of the Bears. They completely revamped the offensive line. They had a good defense in place already, with quality players at each level. So I like what the Bears are doing, and I think that if Caleb Williams can take that next step forward with Ben Johnson in his ear, I think it's certainly possible. And I think that they'll be a team where, looking at the rest of the division, the Vikings, while a good roster, questions at quarterback with JJ McCarthy basically still being a rookie. Green Bay, who I really love and I think I'm going to pick to win the division. It's, not guaranteed. And they have a lot of questions at receiver as well. And then Detroit, you lose Ben Johnson, you lose Aaron Glenn. I could see a fall off there. So like there's potential there where it's kind of up for grabs, and there's teams under pressure like Detroit to prove that they aren't a fluke, and pressure on Minnesota to show like, hey, JJ McCarthy is actually really good. So I think that Chicago could be one of those teams that surprises people. And by the way, they've gone from worst to first, I think 3 times this century. They did it a couple times in the early 2000s, and then they did it in, 2018 with Trubisky. So a team that's very used to doing it. What do the numbers from Aaron say on them?
That's what I'm trying to figure out here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to expand my screen here because I'm an old man. Who has the toughest schedule in the NFL? Oh, okay. The Bears right now, one of the things we have is the second toughest schedule. Now, of course, it's all those divisional opponents, none of whom get to face the Bears.
Yeah.
And I'd have to look into who the out-of-conference opponents are along the way. Numbers like them. The sniff test, everything you talk about, likes them too. It's like, you can't quibble with these moves in terms of how they did things. Defensively, they added Chris Jenkins on the defensive line. They added somebody else on the defensive line, which they were having some problems on defense, I think.
Oh, that's going to bother me. Yeah, let me look who else they added.
And everything you say about the Vikings is true. I don't know what JJ McCarthy is. I don't know how.
Despite what our buddy Thor Nystrom thinks, that JJ McCarthy is the second coming. It's still very much out there.
Yeah. How did McCarthy get better this year? That's what I'm curious about. How did he get better? Because now he's an underdog coming back from an injury, and he had like 4 completions in camp last year.
Yeah. By the way, the additions to the defensive line were Grady Jarrett from Atlanta, Dayo Oda. I'm going to mess up this poor fella's last name. Dayo Odeyingbo from Indianapolis that they signed, and then they drafted Shamar Turner. So
Shamar Turner's a big ad.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good balance of things. This should be a strong team. Again, schedules matter so much. And if you're facing the second toughest schedule and you've got the Lions who have a very high projection here, worst to first is hard. But again, listeners, readers, you're like, oh, I'm looking for wild card teams. I'm looking for over-unders. The Bears are somebody to look at.
Yeah. And what did you find? What was their projected at? Sorry, I didn't.
Okay, the projection for the Bears, is it still? They're not projected for last place in the division.
That's good.
The Vikings are, and it's not just now. The McCarthy projection is kind of like a standard rookie projection. You don't like he didn't magically learn all that much last year. So.
Yeah. And the projections for DVOA are, traditionally low for rookie quarterbacks because they're rookie quarterbacks. Right.
And Aaron gave me a punch list of things about the Vikings in terms of why they're projected a certain way. I think a lot of it's the 1-score victories. A lot of it, I think, is the fact that defensively they're so reliant on blitz tactics, things like that can be very high volatility. So that's why the Bears are ahead of them. So again, for the way these projections go, if a team is projected to not be in last place, that's one step closer to being in first place.
Right. So number 2, I'm going to put Tennessee. They play in a very wide open division, which outside of Houston, like you could put those teams in any order and you probably wouldn't see much argument. I still think Houston's the best team in that division. Yeah. I'm a Trevor Lawrence believer, and I would like to think that they can bounce back in some sort of way. But, those things are still, it's been a couple years since they've been to the playoffs. They've gone through a bunch of stuff over the past couple of years. So, and in terms of what the Titans did in the offseason, like fairly good. Like they overpaid Dan Moore, sure. Like they gave Dan Moore too much money. But you bring in Kevin Zeitler, I think that's a good move. Obviously drafting Cam Ward. They just signed Tyler Lockett, drafted Elick Ayomanor. Still a few questions defensively, especially at edge rusher.
Edge
but
rusher.
I think overall they got better.
Secondary is still full of like guys.
Yeah, like you thought that L'Jarius Sneed was going to be like a big addition that would really help put them over the top, and who they have opposite of him last year, Chidobe Awuzie, who they released, and he's now in Baltimore. And that was one of the bigger shocks for me last year, is that their secondary was as poor as it was.
Right. They lack edge rushers. A lot of veterans on the offensive line that you just named. When you start talking about Zeitler, who's an older player, when you start talking about Lockett, who's an older player.
Yeah.
I like Ward. And I think the basics are there. I'm trying to look at these projections right now for the AFC South, and all the AFC South teams are projected in the bottom half of the NFL.
Yeah.
If you could put a blank space in first place, blank space, league average, however you want to put it, everyone here, everyone has a negative DVOA. Everyone has a negative DVOA projection.
That's rough.
4 teams are below average. Houston's number 1, hanging around 500, below 500 in our projections. Among the teams that are ranked higher than Houston, forget Tennessee, but Houston in these are the Falcons, the Raiders, the Dolphins, who I don't think many of us are that high on. So that gives you so that's wide open.
Yeah.
Cam Ward has a big season. Calvin Ridley has a big season. Chaos ensues. You outperform the Jaguars, who I think improved, but like I don't know what to make of them. You outperform.
What did you think of old Gladstone going balls to the wall and getting Travis Hunter?
It's a lot. It's a lot of a lot.
It was a lot to give up.
Right. What's the vision? I need to be able to like mentally place Hunter on the field.
Yeah.
I think I can see him in Liam Cohen's offense, which is lots of receiver screens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, ball in space. But I don't know anything about their defensive coordinator. I don't know how that projects. I don't know how they're going to approach this. So, and again, in exchange for next year's first round pick, that could be a top 10 pick.
That's a lot.
That could be a top 10 pick. So the Browns were a journey for me, because when they make that trade and get Mason Graham,
yeah,
like, holy shit, they figured this out, and they're going to do this thing where it's like, well, we're going to restock the shelves, and we're just going to roll with Pickett and Flacco. And then by day 3, I was like, was there a gas leak? 4th round, when you're looking at freaking the mini-me and Shedeur,
yeah,
or I guess is mini prime, and you say we're taking a 5'6", 103-pound DoorDash delivery guy at quarterback because that's what we feel about Shedeur. You've made your statement about Shedeur,
yeah,
or prime, or however you want. At that point, you made your statement. We're going to take a ball boy. You cannot turn around and go back. Well, our value, because what happened was their value board. Like Shedeur was here on the value board, and everything else was like. Well, our value board says this. You just effed your value board when you took Dylan Gabriel. You just said some things are bigger than the game, or whatever your mentality was.
Yeah.
You can't go back on that. You needed other players. There were still guys running around that you could have played tight end for you, or could have played defensive line for you. You should have taken one of them. I don't know why I'm on the Browns right now. I guess the Titans bore me, but
it's okay. No, I don't blame you. To stick it to the AFC South, like if there is an argument to be made for the Titans, it's that the Texans, talking about a team that wrote a rookie quarterback who got really hot and wrote it to a division title. Well, the Texans just did that a couple years ago with Stroud.
Yes.
So if the defense is better, if Brian Callahan proves that he's the right guy, and if Ward plays his ass off and turns out to be like the correct pick, then yeah, sure, it could happen. It would require, to me, like the Texans really just falling off a cliff, and that offensive line being like an even bigger problem than last year, because their defense, like on paper and last year, like their defense was good last year, and on paper, I think it got better. So that is going to be the one thing where like I think Houston's defense by default will at least keep them at like 8-9 wins.
Texans are definitely like the embodiment of the Penei Sewell versus Jamar Chase. Let's draft more receivers.
Yeah,
and it's like if he gets rid of the ball in time, somebody's going to be open. I don't see it, but again, if you say, well, that's the formula to win 9.1 games, then that's the formula, because again, you're probably going to get like 30 sacks just out of your division opponents.
It's incredible how CJ Stroud was the second most sacked quarterback in the league last year, and their solution to that was to trade Laramie Tunsil, their one good offensive lineman. That's we'll see.
And they cut Shaq Mason, and they cut other guys,
and they trade for Ed Ingram, who was benched by Minnesota.
Right.
Like I don't know, man.
Right. Everybody they brought in, it's like, well, that's because you're talking about Zietler. Well, that's a professional. They brought in all the guys who got like benched, or like the 5-12 team said, well, we can't use them anymore.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Right.
I still think Stroud's amazing, but he can only do so much with what's in front of him. And then number one, the 49ers. That makes sense why they could go from worst to first. Yeah. It blew my mind that they were in last place too. I would have sworn it was Arizona. The Cardinals won 8 games last year. The 49ers went 6-11. So, no real argument I don't think I need to make here. I still think the Rams are going to win the division again. I just think top to bottom, they're the better team, and the 49ers are like half rebuilding, half trying to stay competitive. And anytime you're in that weird purgatory, like I'm going to have weird opinions about what you're doing. So they also got to figure out, okay, we're going to pay Brock Purdy $50 million a year. That doesn't seem like something that they should do. They rely a lot on McCaffrey, who's getting older and, just got hurt again last year. Ayuk's coming off an ACL, and like all their good defensive players from the past 5 years or so from like these great runs are all gone except for Bosa and Warner. So like they are going through a lot of cosmetic changes, but anytime like they still have Kyle Shanahan, you still got solid to really good weapons, and bringing in Robert Saleh at defensive coordinator, I think that's going to make the defense better by default with whatever new pieces come. So, that's a team that like had an agenda for the draft. It was like, we're just going to draft a ton of defensive linemen to replace all the ones that we've lost. And that's what we're going to do. So I think that if there's any team amongst these 8 teams that you could say, they could go worst to first, it's the team that's been to 2 Super Bowls in the past 5 years.
Yes. And I'm looking at the projections now, and Aaron probably doesn't want me to spoil things. I think some of the things here are stuff that he wants to use specifically for articles.
Sure.
If you were a gambler and you were getting worst to first, I don't even know what you get on the 49ers. I'm not going to pull it up right now. You're not getting plus 600, folks.
On
this particular team. If you're getting plus 120 or plus 140 or something like that, take it.
I'll tell you what FanDuel's giving you. I'll get that pulled up here in a minute and see what the value is there.
It's a high projection, and it's for all the reasons you just said, Jarrett. It's about still having all those pieces on offense, doing enough of a rebuild on defense. All they have left on defense are Bosa and Warner. That's pretty good all you have left.
And plus, like Demo Lenore is like a solid corner that they can lean on a little bit. So like I can see the vision there.
Right. Most of the guys that they had to get rid of were hurt last year anyway, for big chunks of it. So
let's see. The 49ers odds to win the NFC West plus 175 on FanDuel.
Take it.
Yeah.
Based on what I'm looking at right now on the other screen, take that.
Throw a little bit of change on that. Like I said, I still think the Rams are going to win the division. I think offensively they have better weapons. I think that obviously the better quarterback. Defensively, love their front. Secondary wise, I'm surprised they haven't addressed cornerback, although it looks like they could be bringing back Jalen Ramsey in a trade perhaps. But I still have questions at that position a little bit. So we'll see, but I still think the Rams are the best team in that division.
49ers could give them a run for money.
Of course.
Right. The Rams, like I always look at their roster and have to project some of these guys to a degree. I mean, last year, all these defensive linemen were amazing.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to continue, but then you start projecting Devontae Adams, and then you have to project their offensive linemen. So, the one thing I feel comfortable with is I have no idea what the Seahawks are doing. And I
100% agree. They've been one of the weirdest teams in the league. Like when they trade Geno, I'm like, all right, they're probably just gonna take this year, probably be bad a little bit, hopefully have some good draft picks that they can lean on and try to get a quarterback in 2026. And then they signed Sam Darnold. What are you doing? Like you had the perfect tank year right in front of you to just play like Sam Howell or whoever they had and just be bad for a year and then take a quarterback in 26. And then they sign Sam Darnold. They signed Cooper Kupp. I don't know, man. Do they know that they can't just throw to slot receivers and that there's a boundary? Like they got JSN and Cooper Kupp. I don't know what their plan is outside of that.
Right. It's everybody's going to go in motion all the time. I wonder if there are a few teams that based on tape and preliminaries had Shedeur at a certain place and then spoke to him. Because there are a couple of things where teams were like, well, we're confident that there's going to be this many first-round picks. We'll be able to get a guy. And then suddenly it's like somebody's missing from the conversation. But, that's just idle speculation. Sam Darnold is just we want more Geno. We want another couple of years of the Jets cast off guy on his rehabilitation tour. I don't see that. Cardinals have a good projection here. Cardinals added a bunch of defense.
They did.
And you can see them saying, okay, we're going to go out there, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, decent offensive line, decent running game, and trying to win a bunch of 19 to 14 games with our schedule.
Yeah.
That's not going to amount to anything except maybe they're a wild card when everyone else beats each other up.
I feel like every year almost we go into, except maybe like the last couple because the Cardinals went through a big rebuild, but even before, like especially like during the Cliff years in Arizona, we went and we're like, oh man, the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, and then every year it's just like, oh man, Kyler should be better, right?
Right.
And I think that we've just kind of settled on Kyler Murray will start the year probably pretty hot,
Yep.
divot, and then be sporadic throughout the rest of the year.
Right. He's in this little like node in the corner of the map.
Yeah.
And of our minds where we never put any expectations on him. He has highlights. He looks pretty good. He plays pretty well. But like, if he played in a real market, people would be like, what are we still doing with this?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's fair or unfair because there are so many things happening around him. It's just that like right now, if you told me to start naming Cardinals, I'd start sweating.
Yeah.
Is James Conner still their running back one? I don't even know.
He still is. Yes.
Yes. Josh Sweat was brought in as a major addition. I'm struggling in my brain to figure out try to remember who
they brought in the Broncos linebackers at Baron Browning.
They brought in Baron Browning. I think that was last year.
Was
they
it?
got injured guy from Michigan and
Will Johnson, yeah.
Will Johnson, which is a great second round pick. But it's like they make sure that there are 32 teams in the league. That's kind of what their job is.
They certainly field a team.
Yes. Nice 16 on 16, divisible by 2, all that.
Yeah.
Kind of
I think Buda Baker's still there, I believe, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Buda Baker's still there. Their leading sack guy last year, I think, was Zaven Collins.
Was it?
It was, I think. And like Zaven Collins was like their first round pick from like 5 years ago when every first round pick was, this is our new honey badger. This is our positionless guy. And most of them stunk on air.
I was actually going to say it was Zach Allen, but then I forgot he's a Bronco. Like he's not even there anymore. So there's that.
Yeah, Zach Allen's on the Broncos.
Yeah.
And this was we're bringing in Hassan Riddick. We have no idea what to do with him.
Yeah.
Isaiah Simmons, we have no idea what to do with him. So at least now, well, I don't know. They just drafted Michael Williams.
Yeah, they
right?
did. They drafted was it Walter Nolan and Will Johnson. Where did Michael Williams go? I thought Michael Williams went to. Did he go to San Francisco?
He might have gone to San Francisco.
I think he was their first round pick. Yeah,
I know it was like a big, like pure traits guy.
Which, by the way, I mean Jonathan Gannon. I made this joke last week on the show. He looked like the guy on Maury Povich when he finds out he's not the father when they drafted Walter Nolan. Oh, he was ecstatic. So he must have something big planned for him. Like Jonathan Gannon, he's done a really good job with what's been given to him the past couple years, and. As a team that went 8-9 last year, if Will Johnson checks out, if Walter Nolan turns out to be the prospect that Gannon seems to think he is, and the offense can just do a little bit better, I mean, you could talk me into them being a 9-win team that sneaks in as the 7th seed.
A healthy Will Johnson would mean a lot.
Yeah, that's a big if.
Really good, but it's a huge if, right? Because we only saw that for a couple games last year, and everyone seemed really skittish about his medicals. I don't know what they saw in the MRI, but
Yeah. And that is worst to first. Yeah, we completed it. Look at us go. What do you got coming for your readers over on 2 Deep Zone?
Well, I'm doing historicals a little bit right now. I did part 1 of the 49ers top 5 all-time quarterbacks, where I just talk about Steve Young, number 1, Montana, number 2, in my opinion. A lot of lively chatter about that in the message board. And now tomorrow it's going to be 3 through 6. I usually do top 5. I'm going down to 6. So you're going to have to find out who ranks where, including some of the more recent guys in 49ers history.
They've got like the 49ers quietly, like an incredible, like even behind like Young and Montana, like was a Brody that they had before them, a couple guys in the last 20 years that, turned out to be something. So they've done a really like quietly very good quarterback history there.
They rarely have like a FUBAR quarterback situation. When it was bad, it was really bad, and they'd cycle through 3 guys.
Yeah, it's like Tim Rattay bad. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah.
right. But then they'll have these runs where, and it's always like the guy, like for years, it has been the guy has a super team around him.
Yeah.
Like a Garoppolo, he was a product of the super team. And with Purdy, product of the super team. Well, Y.A. Tittle was a member of the $1 million backfield. Like literally, that's a super team. You
Yeah.
know, that's what they're saying there. So a lot of guys to sort through in that. Had a lot of fun writing it. And then I don't know what I'm doing next week. I'm working on the almanac a lot. What do you got going on?
Well, speaking of quarterbacks, the top 30 quarterbacks of the Super Bowl era panel. Everybody has sent me their quarterbacks. All the votes are tabulated. We have the top 30. It is done. So that will be coming out within the next month. We're going to roll it out in, I think, 3 sections. So we'll do 30 to 21, 20 to 11, then 10 to 1. That'll be coming out in, like I said, I believe 3 sections on sbnation.com. Mike was part of that panel. So that'll be a lot of fun to go back and revisit. But yeah, the
any surprise, like a surprise, like a name that you didn't think was going to pop up a lot that popped up?
Maybe he wasn't on my list, but he ended up making the final cut near the bottom. I'll give everybody a little bit of a taste here. I didn't put Bob Greasy on my list, but he made the cut. And I think a lot of what we just talked about with the 49ers, a product of a lot of like you had Mercury Morris and just a really great backfield around him throughout all of it. And they made the undefeated year where they made the Super Bowl without him. Earl Morrall was the quarterback. So I didn't put him on my personal list, but he did end up making the final like panel overall list.
Right.
Was there any other surprises? I'll tell you what, there was, I think 49 quarterbacks or 50 quarterbacks that got votes. There were a few in there that I was very surprised got votes.
Jim Everett.
No, Jim Everett was not one of them. There was, I think, a few Tony Romos. Yeah, Tony Romo was fine. There was a few Donovan McNabbs. And I was
I think I might have had him at like the bottom somewhere.
Yeah, like fringe guys. I'm trying to think of maybe one more. There was one Joe Theismann.
All right.
Yeah. So that one was a little bit surprising to me. But like I said, I think 49 quarterbacks got votes for it, and then I calculated all of it, put it together, and we came to the consensus top 30. So that'll be rolling out in the next month. And then on the Steelers side of things, gonna try to get in touch with a few different people close to Derek Harmon and do a quick feature on him, Steelers first round pick. So fun stuff coming on my end of things. And then for USA Today, top 36 quarterbacks in the NFL now, yearly piece that I do. Could be 32, but I decided I will be different to be 36.
36 is good because you have up in the air positions and you can grab those guys who are in competitions.
Yeah. So I think this is the 3rd year I'm doing the top 36. So that'll be coming out in the next week. Busy as always. Especially during this time of year when you got to find stuff to write. You and I joked at the combine one year. It's like, let's compare quarterbacks to salad dressings. Why not?
Yes, and I did.
You did.
you challenged me, and I rose to that occasion. But that is what happens this time of year.
Yes.
Again, I'll be doing more historical stuff as you're doing when we talk about top quarterbacks to try and not get too deeply into the 6th round pick caught a pass against air in minicamp, and what does that mean?
And then in terms of the YouTube channel, if you're watching this on YouTube, stuff that's coming there, the first watch the tape of the year, Josh Allen's best throws of 2024. If it's not already on the channel, it will be very shortly. And then bringing back the top 10 series. So just counting down, historical stuff, top 10, different categories. Similar to, it's quite literally, I'm just taking what the NFL Network show was that you used to be on and just making my own personal things of it. That's quite literally all it is.
They abandoned the idea.
So dumb. Why would you ever get rid of it?
On the air, but like younger people are on. But they just got rid of it.
That's so crazy.
Yeah,
so crazy.
Right.
But Mike, I always appreciate talking to you. Appreciate you giving me some time. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Same. Take care.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the Pump Fake. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, do all that fun YouTube stuff. If you're listening as a podcast, leave a review. We'll be back next week. Talk more NFL on the Pump Fake.